Hello, everyone. Welcome to All You Do Is Win. All we do is win. You do is win. Everybody is winning. My name is Chanel. I am the founder and CEO of the Mentor Collective. By day, I am a software engineer, and by night and this evening, I'm going to be your host for this amazing session with the incredible Erin. So, but before we jump into that session again, this is going to be Privacy Engineering 101. I just want to go over a couple of announcements. But before we even do that, go ahead and let us know where you all are tuning in from. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. I am here in the wonderful New York City, where spring is trying to approach, but winter's like, but wait, sis. So we're in that wonderful, wonderful, awkward season of cold and warm weather. But wherever you are in the world, whether it's here in the United States or abroad, we want to say welcome and thank you so much for viewing this broadcast. So again, this is All We Do Is Win. This is our 2-week long software engineering series. This is the last week. Last week, we had about 5 different sessions, and this week we also have some more coming up. Again, we just want to say greetings to you all and just thank you so very much again for tuning in. Please make sure that you all take a moment and share this broadcast with your friends. If it is anyone who's interested in careers within engineering, especially within privacy and at Google, go ahead and take a moment and share. And then when you do share, tag us and let us know. We're on all platforms, LinkedIn, obviously you're viewing this on YouTube, but LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and of course the Twitter. Absolutely. So this month, as you know, is Women's History Month, and we're taking time to celebrate the greatest Black women in tech. I'm so honored to have them as a part of my tribe, a part of my network, and I hope you all go ahead and continue to reach out to them as well, because it will be amazing for them to join your network as well. A lot of people say that your network is your net worth, and I truly, truly believe that where I am today would not be possible if I did not take the time to really do those connections. And when I say do those connections, I mean reaching out and networking earlier on. So I'm honored and very thankful and grateful for each and every one of them, and I hope you enjoy these sessions with them as well. Now, take a moment and let us know where you are in your engineering journey. How are you in school? Are you learning in a boot camp or just self-learning? Let us know with a smiley face. If you are currently applying for your first role, give us that elated face. Like, sis, we are in here. And then also, if you are growing and glowing in your career, go ahead and shoot us this cool face emoji. Now, y'all, we have so many events coming up this month and even next month, but we definitely want you to know that if you all are interested in careers at Adobe Design within any spectrum of the company, whether that's business ops, regular development, design, UX design, product design, or even engineering, we want you to go ahead and go on over to bit.ly/MMC Dash Events and sign up, submit your resume, because they will be hiring on the spot here as well. And there will be a wonderful conversation where we're going to talk about diversity in the space and what they do to foster that and make sure that it does feel inclusive and safe, especially for Black women. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. Now, we just recently launched Remote Work Week with MMC Collective, and I'm so excited because our first destination is Orlando, Florida. We are really taking this year to be really intentional about creating memories and moments because life is short. And so we want to be sure that, one, of course, we're being safe, but two, we are taking time to really, really create memories with not only ourselves and our families, but with you all as well. So if you all are interested in traveling with us to Orlando, Florida, go ahead and visit bit.ly/MMC-travel, and you'll be able to kind of submit your registration. It does have more information on there. We will have and send out a travel brochure as well as an orientation video that just basically lets you know where we will be, what activities we're going to be doing in the evening, because it is remote work week. So 9 to 5 we're working, and after hours we do some really cool activities: baking, ceramic classes, bowling. We're going to go to Disney World for a day too. So definitely go ahead and lean into that as well. So before we jump into the main event, there are a couple of other things that we want to go over too. Just having you meet the team. We talk about our mentorship program that is completely free and helping folks to get into tech. We do want to go over our text reminder campaign so you never miss another MMC event. And we also have an MMC Etsy shop where you can go ahead and shop our wonderful looks that our designer designed. It is absolutely incredible. So I'm excited to get into that. And then, of course, it wouldn't be an MMC event without an MMC giveaway. Ooh. So before we go to the next slide, I want you all to meet the team. So obviously, like I said, I'm the founder and CEO of Chanel. We have the COO right to my right, who is Javon, and then also the head of people and the executive administrator. He also runs the business operations as well. He's just Mr. Everything. I'm very grateful for Dominique. So if you want to meet with us, if you want to talk to us, if there's something that you all want to see us do, please go ahead and shoot us an email at admin@MMC, which is mentormecollective.org. And again, it is admin@mentormecollective.org, and we'll definitely get back to you. Now, y'all, this could all be you. We are definitely looking for more folks to join our team as well. So we're looking for a video editor, social media manager, looking for a grant sponsorship specialist, and also an email support specialist. So if you are interested in volunteering with us and creating impact, our goal is to serve the community by making all of these events free and accessible to all. Please go ahead and send us, go to bit.ly. I was going to say send us an email. But go to bit.ly/MMC-team. It's going to take you to our booking website. It will allow you to go ahead and book whichever role you're interested in. And then just make sure you book it specifically with Javon. And then you can go ahead and set up those conversations as well. Now, did somebody say free career coaching? We sure did. If you go to our website, mentormecollective.org, and click mentorship, you have options. You can choose to become a mentee of our free mentorship program, where we have been able to get 210 plus people into tech, totaling the amount of $23 million in total compensation. Those are not baby numbers. Those are real numbers, because we believe that everyone deserves a six-figure salary, and we are actively taking steps to decrease the Black wealth gap. Black and Hispanic wealth gap. So if you're interested in coming into that mentee program, we've mixed career coaching with the technical expert to allow your skills to immerse and blossom. And you're able also to work amongst the team to create an amazing project as well. So that's within design, PM, data science, finance and sales. We have technical and non-technical sectors. So please go ahead and submit your interest. But also, we do have spaces for our mentors. So if you're interested in becoming a mentee or a mentor, please go ahead and visit these two links here on the screen, bit.ly/MMC-mentee or bit.ly/MMC-mentor. Now, again, we talked about our text reminders earlier. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss another event, or that you make sure that you are a part of our giveaways, please go ahead and text MMC to 866-901-1914. Again, that is MMC to 866-901-1914. Make sure you just never miss another event. We get so many emails and comments, even on our replays, that said, I can't believe I missed this live. Y'all, if you would have texted us, you would have known, because we would have gave you the 411. So we're looking forward to seeing you all there as well. Now, we talked earlier about our Etsy shop, y'all. Every month is a new month that we have a theme. Last month was Black History, so we had exclusive Black History Month merch. This month is Women's History Month. So I definitely want you all to go ahead and look at all of the designs that Sade, our designer, went ahead and created for you all. If you go to our Etsy shop, which is etsy.com/shop/mentormecollective, you'll see all of those super dope designs. All of the proceeds go towards our tech fundraiser that allows us at the end of the year to be able to be a blessing to our community. So we have a lot of people that also write us and say they are looking for funds for purchasing computers or software or any kind of thing. So getting into tech is not cheap. We want to make sure, again, that you all have everything that you need to be successful. What's an MMC event without a giveaway? So I'm so excited about that. You all can enter the giveaway by just making sure that you attend all of our sessions. Make sure you're taking notes as well, because all the content is fair game to be on the quiz. We do want to make sure that you're connected with us on social media as well, on all social media platforms. So go ahead and follow us. And again, you do have to make sure you do complete the online quiz, which will be texted to you through that text link when you opt in. The way that we're able to know, though, if you were at our event, is if you would go ahead and take a selfie in our photo booth. So go ahead and get your phones out, y'all. Go ahead and aim at this wonderful QR code. It will take you directly to our wonderful photo booth that you can open up in Safari or wherever the case may be. And we have some awesome designs, again, that will take you directly to this photo booth, and you can take a picture, let us know that you are here, all the things. Now, these are the prizes that we're going to be giving away: the Apple AirTags, the HomePod Mini, the Hydrate water bottle, and the NanoLeaf smart light bulbs. All of this is amazing technology for you to be able to never lose your keys again. Definitely amplify the sound. Make sure you're drinking your water, staying hydrated, and keeping the melanin glowing. And also, once you get into that wonderful bed, honey, who wants to turn off the light after you done found your position, honey? You can turn it off on your phone. So definitely lean into that as well. But now, for the main event, which I know you all are ready for, we have the incredible Erin Melford. She is a privacy engineer at Google. She has an amazing career that has spanned so many different spaces and sectors, which is absolutely mind-boggling. I actually met Erin through networking on LinkedIn during the year of 2020. And now look at how this relationship has blossomed. I'm so grateful and thankful. So that, if anything, I want y'all to take from this, put yourself out there, reach out to some amazing people on LinkedIn, because you never know how those relationships will flourish. And also, you never know how other people will be impacted by that relationship. So without further ado, I'm so excited. Welcome to the stage, Erin.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. And Erica, I'm ready too. Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah. And to Chanel's point, Niavani, I think I saw you on Instagram earlier today. So like the network, you make the dream work. Yes. I met Chanel over LinkedIn, so it's real.
Absolutely, y'all. And it's so beautiful. Before this conversation, well, before we went live, we were having a conversation, and I was being open and honest about my growth and my experiences in the space. So it's important to have people who you feel safe with, who you can trust, and you can glean and learn from. Because again, we all have had those experiences, and you want to make sure that you're learning from folks who have actually had those experiences, not just out here talking about what they would do in that situation. I didn't know. I need actions. So I'm just so grateful and so thankful. Without further ado, y'all, I'm going to hand the stage over to Miss Erin.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. As Chanel mentioned, my name is Erin Relford. I am a privacy engineer. I'm going to talk to you today about a little bit about my journey, how I got here, and then just kind of give you those nitty-gritty details in terms of what it means to actually be a privacy engineer, in case you're interested, because it is one of the hottest jobs on the tech market today. If you take a look at LinkedIn, everybody is hiring a privacy engineer or a privacy analyst, and they're paying top dollar to do so. So I highly recommend you take a look if you think privacy, after this discussion, privacy might be for you. Just a little quick, reminder of like who I am and what I do. Privacy engineer over at Google, and I primarily focus on a few things. My favorite being robotics. Just as a tidbit, I actually really do love robots. Like I'm a huge movie fan of like anything that's robot related, and so like I really did mob R2-D2 when I worked for Disney, and he happened to be on site that day. So just really quickly, I also deal within health AI. I do a lot in terms of, I work on projects that are related to biometrics, as well as Area 120, which is the startup area wing of Google, where teams can get together and create new things. So the beautiful part about my role is I get to touch all of these amazing things that are involved in emerging technology. So I'm very fortunate to do what I do. Just to kind of lay out where I was, who I've been, what got me, or how I arrived to this point. I started out at a company, an engineering firm by the name of Fugro, as a receptionist. I was making $11 an hour. I was in school, but really didn't want to be in college. Like I hated college, right? I hate structured learning, which is why I went the certification route after I graduated. But I was working as an engineer working as a receptionist full-time and going to school full-time. And it just so happened that through my networking, because I was a receptionist and met everybody coming through the door, I was always curious and talking with people and understanding what it is that they did. And so through that, it just so happened that one of the engineers took an interest in me. And when she went on maternity leave, she suggested that Erin take over my role. Miss Erin, receptionist, making $11 an hour, take over engineer role. And so my role there at Fugro was primarily like checking the other engineers' math, making sure that things were calibrated, equipment, etc. And that led to the safety director asking me to come along with him to do what I didn't know at the time was an operational audit. So when I found out, like, oh, there's such a thing as IT audit, that's when I got my hustle on, and I basically figured out what do I need to have in terms to be in order to be an IT auditor. And I switched my major from engineering to what we would know as information systems, but it was a hybrid of computer science and everything hardware at the time. This is 15, 20 years ago, y'all. So it was basically a conundrum of both hardware and software, and it wasn't in the business school. It was very much tech related, but it wasn't computer science, right? Because I didn't want to code. This, girls can code, but this one doesn't. And so I never had an interest in it outside of learning how to do it in college. Anyway, so I ended up getting a job at IT, in IT audit at Waste Management. And shortly after that, got sprung from that world into consulting. And so I worked for KPMG for a year and got plucked out of obscurity when the Walt Disney Company called me and asked me if I would be interested in interviewing for an IT auditor role in Los Angeles. Y'all, I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, so small town. Well, it was small at the time, not so much small now, but to go from where I was to the Walt Disney Company in Los Angeles was major for me. And at that time, I even upped my salary at that point to $100,000 a year. And I never, y'all, when I got out of high school, you can actually go back and look at the yearbook, and it said to work as an aerospace engineer making $80,000 a year. That was my ceiling. And so I do want to tell you, just before we hop into the privacy bit of this, don't ever put a ceiling on yourself, because you never know where you can end up. And my salary has doubled since then. So with that being said, let's go. So yeah, just if you look at the bottom here, I've been in the entertainment space for a while. I've pretty much worked at almost every studio in Los Angeles. But some of my best years were at Fox, ironically, just because I had a manager that fully supported me. When he brought me over as an IT audit manager, he said, "What do you want to do?" And I was very clear about letting him know what I wanted, which is another thing that I want you to take with you is when someone asks you what you want, make sure you have an answer to that. Already be thinking about that, because he did let me write my ticket. And that is where I spent most of my time doing cybersecurity, working in the digital space of what we call OTT, but you would know it as streaming now. So the Netflix and the Disney Pluses of the world. I did a lot of cloud work at Fox when they were ramping that up. And so moved on to Warner Brothers. And here I am now at Google working in privacy. All right. So what is privacy? What is a privacy engineer and why does all this matter? I essentially like for people to just kind of understand what the real definition is, and that is the state or condition of being free from being observed or disturbed by other people. So if you think of yourself as, and this is going to be cheesy, but walk with me. If you see yourself as a mobile device, okay, you have functionality, you have buttons that can be pushed. And if I know the inner workings of how these buttons work, then I can manipulate you as a device. And that is essentially what happens when we give our data away to software applications, to what we're working on or what we give in terms of websites, the information that we give on our wearables, all of this, we are broadcasting things about ourselves, and companies are using that information to, one, make better products to serve you, but then there are bad actors using that information to figure out how to manipulate you. So think about privacy in the realm of everything on your person, your body, your heart rate, right? That could be something that is, maybe not exclusive to you, not your heart rate, but your DNA is very exclusive to you. So anything that you can identify with as a person can be related to privacy. And that even means gender, race, your sexual orientation. All of these things can be applicable in terms of privacy. And this is what we look for in the products that we work with every day. Okay. And so I think I just basically told you, in every technology device that you have, you should be thinking about your privacy and what controls are there in order to control the information that is going out onto the World Wide Web, as they would say. Privacy runs the gamut in terms of industry. And so as a privacy engineer, you could work primarily in any industry with this role. It's a lot like audit or governance, risk, and compliance. Like, everyone needs it. And if you're paying attention nowadays, in terms of like regulation and where the law is headed, the law is catching up to privacy. And so, a lot of companies are now starting to pay attention in terms of what do we need in our house to build privacy by design and make sure that we're covered before they even pass laws, and that's just the right thing to do. Okay, so what does a privacy engineer actually care about? And this is data. We primarily follow the flow of data through a data lifecycle. And if you want to know more information about that, I'll talk to you about like what resources are available to you to kind of find out more about that. So we care about how a piece of data is going to flow through. Again, you being a device, a mobile phone, like, how is information going into that phone? How is it being processed? How is it being used? How is it being stored? And then at the point that we no longer need that information, like, what are we doing with it? Are we just keeping it on the phone? You know how you have photos from like 20, maybe not 20 years ago, but you have photos on your phone from 10 years ago, and now your storage is all full and you have to like delete. It's kind of the same thing, right? And we call that retention and deletion. And so that's something to think about. One thing I do want to make you aware of is privacy engineers can do a multitude of things, right? And so you have privacy engineers that solely work on policy, writing policy for others to help them understand what they should be doing in terms of guidelines, like what are the guardrails for privacy. You do have privacy engineers that do code as software engineers. We are seen on the same ladder per se as a software engineer. So don't think that, I have to know how to code. Like, listen, it definitely supports you in the roles that you will do. However, you don't necessarily need to know how to code to be a privacy engineer, but there are some that do work on tooling that actually code. And then thirdly, there are privacy engineers that consult and basically embed themselves with product and engineering teams to kind of help them understand what privacy should look like in their specific product. And that is what I do on a day-to-day basis. Okay, who do I work with on that day-to-day basis? I am primarily working with product managers. I am working with software engineers. I'm working with legal, as well as TPMs, as well as security. So I work with everyone within IT, essentially, right? And so it requires that I have a certain level of soft skills, because what I do want you to know about is that the language in which each of these people speak is different. When I am talking to security, that is not going to sound the same way as when I'm talking to legal. And if we are all 5 of us in the room together, we're all hearing different things. And so a lot of times I find myself having to explain things to the lawyer so that they can understand the technical nitty bits, right? I have to basically, I have to simplify my language. So if the software engineer is saying something super technical, I have to simplify my language so that the lawyer understands for their side of the house where they are looking for certain things within regulations, and helping to know both sides of that really works in the sense of a privacy engineer is basically a translator, which is just crazy, right? It's like, if you can just break this down and remove all the technical side of it, you're a translator. So I love that part of my job. It also, because I'm a curious person, it allows me to learn from each of these individuals. And just for the room, I'm not really sure where everyone's baseline is, but just to kind of give you an idea, the product manager is in charge of the product as a whole, right? They're making sure that everyone working on it has what they need. driving the decisions in terms of that product. And then the software engineers who is actually building it, like they just need to know like what are the confines in which I need to code, right? And then legal's making sure that we are within bounds in terms of government regulation. TPMs, kind of the same thing as a product manager, only their focus is not necessarily the product. Their focus is making sure that all organizationally, everyone in the room has what they need and that things keep moving, right? And then security, that's kind of obvious. So privacy is not security. That is one thing I want you to know. It is not. There is some overlap, but we are separate. We think separately. I think the one way you can kind of separate privacy and security is what security is more of what could we do, and privacy is what should we do, right? Like, so it's kind of ethical in a sense. But I digress. We'll go. I don't want to get off on a tangent. We'll go somewhere else with that later. All right. Important concepts that I think you should know if you want to become a privacy engineer is one. Let's talk about just the technical things that are important. Information security. I just mentioned that we are not security. However, a lot of the principles that we apply in privacy will relate to security. So let me give you an example of that. A lot of times we want to know who has access to the data, because again, data is my friend, my best friend. So I want to know who has access to the data. So I'll be asking specific questions around your identity and access management processes. So that's why I say information security is great to know. I may be asking about your data in transit or your data at rest, and I want to know what type of encryption protocols you have in place. That's all security, folks, right? And so it does help to know the ins and outs of hardware and software. And the reason I say that, as I mentioned, you've got multiple people in the room. So if I'm talking to a solutions architect about, again, I care about the data. Where's the data being stored? I want to know what type of databases you're using, and I want to know what's the security around those databases. I want to know what the capacity is for that database in the sense of, can we remove data when we need to? How easy would that be, right? And I'm being very simplified here for the conversation, but it can get very technical. So it's important for you to have those type of concepts early if you're thinking about a career in privacy. Some of the future forward things that are being worked on today happen to be artificial intelligence, machine learning, and if you take a step deeper into that, deep learning, right? And so a lot of companies are now working on these things. And so what does that look like for you in terms of privacy? They're building models that are training off of certain data. I care about data, right? And so if I am working with a team that has machine learning capabilities, there are questions that I'm going to ask based on what's the data, what's happening with the data in those models. And so we, as I mentioned, we touch everything within information technology. And then I mentioned earlier, I referenced policy. What are the guardrails and what are the guidelines? It's important as a privacy engineer that I know these things, because a lot of times, not only am I a translator, I'm also an educator. So people may not be aware of what those guidelines are for privacy. Like, why does that matter to me? Why do I care that I need to delete the data, right? They may have never heard of something called data minimization, which is a privacy principle. So it's up to me. It's my responsibility to make sure that they are aware of that. And if I have to go a step further, it's my responsibility to make sure that the infrastructure has the capability so that we can minimize the data that we're collecting. GDPR is so, like, you can Google GDPR. It's more of a legal thing, but it's helpful in terms of getting a role in privacy engineering. If you know GDPR, for me, that was my segue into privacy. It just so happened that when GDPR came about in 2018, I was asked, because we didn't have a privacy department at Fox. And so the lawyers came knocking on audit's door saying, hey, can you help us? And my boss basically just threw it at me and said, go figure this out. And so I traveled Europe for about a year, just making sure that we were implementing GDPR controls and working with legal to make sure that the policy lined up with those controls. And so that was my segue into privacy. I do not work within the confines of GDPR now. Again, that's a legal responsibility. However, it helps that I know these things because we can have the conversation between legal and privacy to make sure that infrastructure is showing up the way it needs to. All right. So how do you become a privacy engineer? Whew. Everyone's path is different. I think in everything you do, never rely on, well, he or she did it this way, so I got to do it that way too. That is not the case. You are a very unique individual, and so you will determine what your path will be based on how hard you work, how hard you network, and how hard you hustle. So just remember that. But in terms of the traditional ways to get into privacy engineering, one is the educational route, going through a four-year university, right? Carnegie Mellon is one of the top universities. They actually have a privacy engineering program, but they also have a privacy engineering certificate. And I love certificates, y'all, because I don't want to sit in a classroom for 4 years. I don't even want to do it for 2. So if it means that I can focus in on what I need to know related to privacy engineering, and it's going to take me, I don't know how long the certificate program they have is, but if it means that I can kind of shortcut just by knowing the absolutely necessary tidbits, then let me go ahead and get my certification. So those are 2 options. The other options are the IAPP, which is the leader in privacy. That organization has several certificates that they put out. I particularly have the CIPT, which is a privacy technologist. And I found their training to be just second to none in terms of the information that I needed to know and the information that I touch day to day, right? When we talk about the different or the multitude of frameworks that exist out there, I really liked the CIPT and what it had to offer. And then also on the other side, there is ISACA. So ISACA, I'm a member of both organizations. ISACA does have a privacy certification called the CDP SE. That is the Certified Data Privacy Solutions Engineer. Yeah. They tackle privacy in a different way. It's more nuanced in how ISACA looks at privacy versus IAPP. And I think it's primarily because of the frameworks that they rely on for their information, or how they sift through information. And so I am not advocating for either one. I'm not endorsing either one, but I am saying these 2 types of certifications are available to you. I have both, but I liked CIPT better, just FYI. And then your experience. How do I get experience in privacy if I've never done this stuff? And I'm gonna get to your questions. I see your question, Tiffany, and Erica. I see a few questions. I will make sure I have time for that. How do you make sure that you get the expertise if no one's trying to hire you for a privacy role because you've never done privacy? Well, there's certain ways around that, right? One, take a look at your current work history, like everything on your resume from your past, and I want you to line those things up based in terms of how privacy principles work. So I mentioned to you that soft skills was a big part of my job, right? And so relationship management, if I go out on LinkedIn and I find a job role that is available within privacy, I'm looking for those soft skills. What are they asking for? And where in my particular roles in the past have I done that? And let me pull those out as bullets so that you see that I speak the language, even though my title did not reflect that I was in privacy, right? And then also, I think in terms, if you want the technical know-how, right? I always advocate, let me go to this next, let me kind of talk around these resources that I talk about. Microlearning. I really like taking workshops and little trainings to kind of just get my feet wet to determine if I like something. So that way I'm not committing thousands of dollars for a degree that I get halfway through and I don't even like this work, So I really like to take these online trainings just to kind of get my feet wet and understand, is this something that I want to go further in? And if it is, well, then I'll go ahead and get a certification. And there's several like sites that you can go out and look at. My favorites I have listed here: Udemy, Udacity, LinkedIn Learning. I really like what Udacity is doing in terms of like future forward stuff. So like they've got a ton of stuff out there on machine learning, but then y'all, there are also free resources out there. Not that I work for Google, but like they have a lot of great free information that they post as well. And so take advantage of all of it. AWS does as well. And then one thing to kind of keep in mind, I've mentioned networking before. Man, listen, I think every job I've ever had was through networking that I got it, right? It was making sure that people were aware that I existed, making sure that I am broadcasting on all job boards, that kind of thing. And so I think it's important to also network with organizations that are involved in the type of work that you want to do, because that way, that's how you meet people who are actually doing the day-to-day work. That's how you learn about the job. That's how you learn their language. And so when you get into these interviews, when you're speaking their language, they know exactly what you're talking about. Like, oh, there's an instant yes, right? I tell people all the time, say yes to yourself before anyone else gets the opportunity to. As well as if you can't say yes to yourself, why would anyone else do that? And so what I mean in those underlinings is make sure that you are well-versed in the knowledge, but also make sure you're well-versed in the language of like what these people do on a day-to-day basis, so that when they're in front of you, it's an automatic yes, like, oh yeah, he or she gets it, right? Couple of things. Favorite website, privacypatterns.org. It basically lists a few things that I want you to know that's important in terms of privacy. There are 3 sections. If this was a sandwich, right, the top layer is user trust, user expectations. Do users trust our product enough and envision that it already has privacy by design built into it? That's what I mean by user trust. And then in the meat layer is those privacy principles. And so I say that because privacypatterns.org kind of points out a lot of things that you need to consider as a privacy engineer. And so it's good to just kind of, it's free and it's all accurate. And then on that lower level is the technical infrastructure. So just to repeat those three concepts, it's user trust and expectations. There is the privacy principles, and then there is the technical infrastructure. Those 3 things envelope what privacy engineering is, and give yourself grace in understanding all of that. No one is expected to know that overnight. You have to get some of this stuff through experience, but it's very possible. So how do you get that through experience? So again, YouTube University, listening to people like myself who do this day in and day out. They will give you those tidbits, and YouTube is free. So take advantage of that. I have more videos out on Women Tech Makers Tech Bites that talks about privacy engineering, and some of we kind of do a little deeper dive on some of the things that we do. So be sure to check those out. Privacy Infra. So this is a group by transcend.io. They get together and talk to privacy engineers in a room, and it's like the best thing to nerd out on if you actually enjoy privacy. So like they've had people from the New York Times there, Major League Baseball, like everybody is doing privacy in some form or fashion if you interact with humans on a regular basis. And so those are good to just go out and listen to, again, because you're picking up lingo, you're picking up concepts that maybe you're not aware of that you need to research more on. That's a good opportunity to as well network, because if I see that at the time when I was trying to get into privacy engineering, I saw that the New York Times, the person on there was speaking about it. And so for me, that was a quick, let me go find this individual on LinkedIn, send them a DM. Hey, I really appreciated your workshop or your training or whatever it was at the time, and curious about more. That was a perfect way to network, right? And then what else? Other certifications. I'm a big certification junkie. And so I really like the CISSP. I did say that security is not privacy, but I also said that knowing security concepts will help you in your role as a privacy engineer. And so what I will be honest with you about is anyone who has a CISSP is not unemployed. like anyone who has a CISSP, I would dare to challenge you to find someone who can't get a job in security who has a CISSP. It's highly respected and regarded. And so you can't, in my personal opinion, you can't lose with a CISSP. I don't have mine, but that's because I just decided 4 is enough. Like how many certifications you gonna get? And then the CISA. So that is a certified information systems auditor. The only reason I like this certification mostly for people is because it teaches you these core disciplines. It is information security. It is change management. It is operational IT, right? Like all the background stuff, like running jobs and backups and all that kind of stuff. So there is these core functions within the CISA that they cover. And so it gives you a really good, well-rounded idea of the life cycle of tech, right? Or of software design. And so I again, CISA is also kind of a good one in terms of I don't know many people who have it and aren't employed. So, and I think I've already touched on growing your network. So I'll stop talking there. Let me see. So questions, let me scroll through here, unless I don't want to miss too many people's, let me start.
Absolutely. And this was a fantastic presentation, Erin. You was doing the thing. So I'm so excited that the audience also thinks so. I'm going to put the questions on the stage for you.
Okay, thank you.
One question came from Tiffany. Obviously, she said you don't need to code to be a privacy engineer. I think you talked about that a little bit more, but can you go a little further in that?
Yeah, Tiffany, you don't need to code to be a privacy engineer. I'm going to say it. You quote me. You don't need to know how to code. However, it is helpful to know code, right? So if you can read code, then you can have a conversation. So what do I mean by that? Let me kind of give you a real world example. If you are working with a software engineer who is working within machine learning, like they're building a model, and you understand Python, right? Which is the coding language that is typically used. Well, so now you can have, and on top of that, you understand privacy. Well, now you can have a real conversation about what that model is doing versus having the software engineer inform you and tell you what that thing actually does, right? And so I think knowing how to code gives you just more agency, but you don't need to know how to code. I don't read Python. I don't write Python. I just know Python. I just know Python is a thing, right? And so now that I work as a privacy engineer, it's actually on my goal list to learn Python because I want to be able to compete with more senior privacy engineers who may know that information, right? So it's always it's just good for you to know personally, but I'm saying you don't need to know how to code.
I love that so much, Tiffany. I hope that answered your question, sis. Another question from Erica, is privacy engineering a subset of compliance/compliance engineering, or is it totally unrelated?
Yes and no. It's not compliance. It is not compliance, okay? However, if you remember me talking about some of the regulations that apply within privacy. So GDPR, which is a European regulation, any American company that does business in Europe has to comply with GDPR. And so we as privacy engineers, legal will come to us, or let's say this, let me look at it this way. If I'm a privacy engineer working on a product that is going to be in Europe, that to me signifies that there's going to be GDPR involved. And so what does that mean? Because if my sole responsibility is to build a product with privacy by design, I need to know on the ground floor what GDPR implications are going to be. What do we need to build inside of this infrastructure to make sure that we stay within the lines of GDPR? So it is not compliance engineering because GDPR is just one thing to comply with, right? There are a multitude of things, but it's just one sector of what we do. So no, it's not compliance engineering, but there is a subset of compliance.
That is awesome. And I hope also, Erica, that answers your question. Ooh, we're back for a double whammy with Tiffany. Did you pursue the certification before you got the job, or was it the job that dictated which certification you chose?
Good question. Okay, so at the point, Tiffany, that I knew that I wanted to be a privacy engineer, or excuse me, I didn't know I wanted to be a privacy engineer. I didn't even know that was a thing, right? I knew I wanted to work in privacy because I'm always like sniffing out what's the next frontier for tech. And if you kind of notice, like Web 3.0 is like where this is going in terms of blockchain. 3 years ago, it was privacy. And so I was already on top of that. I was like, let me just make sure I one up my education. And so I went and got the ISACA CDPSE first prior to ever applying for a job, because I needed to, remember, I want you to pay attention. I said earlier, you got to say yes to yourself first. So I needed to say, yes, I know the knowledge, because no one else is going to tell me I don't, right? And so I needed to educate myself first, got that certification, and then just so happened to start applying for jobs and roles. Got picked up by Google. And at the point that I was inside of Google, I wanted to know more. Like, again, I don't want someone to inform me of my decision. I want to make that decision and know that I'm right. So I decided, let me go ahead and get my CIPT, because I discovered that it was the top tier certification to have. And so I just went ahead and did that. So I was a bit of both. I got the certification first, then got the job, but then got another certification.
Wow. How long are these certification programs normally?
The one that I took for CIPT, I took a 2-week training. But I think it depends on what type of person you are. If you are good at memorizing stuff, you probably need only 2 weeks, but I'm not that person. I need to understand it, massage that material, make it my own kind of thing. And so I read the book that they offer in the training cover to cover. So it took me a month to really get my stuff down.
That's not bad though, honey, compared to 2 and 4 years, honey. Yes.
Correct. But Chanel, if you got a full-time job and you got kids, how many hours a day are you contributing to that month? That's the question.
That's also a good other perspective as well. So Tiffany, I hope that answered your question. Oh, Erica for a double whammy too. So she says, I'm assuming you mean, does the IAPP and ISACA have experience requirements to get the certs, or as a total newbie, can you take them?
As a total newbie, you can take these certs. So I hate the conversations that I see happening online where people are telling you, well, what's the point of getting the certification if you need the experience to actually be qualified to have the certification? And I want to be clear. Let me use the CISA as an example. So the CISA says that you can't call yourself a CISA until you have, I think it's 2+ years experience. There's qualifications to actually be considered certified. However, nothing prevents you from taking the exam. And if you pass, they give you a piece of paper that says you passed, right? They even give you a little number ID or whatever. And so if you are applying for a job, I haven't been in an interview where they said, can you please show me your cert qualification? I've never seen that. So what I'm trying to say is, don't let that deter you from getting the certification, from taking the exam and passing it. Because if a company were to ask, or a recruiter were to say, well, can you just send me your information? I'm happy to send you that thing that says I passed, because the only thing that's preventing me from the experience is you giving me the job. I'm happy to have that conversation. So I hope that answers your question.
That's so good. Yes, Erica, that was a good question as well. Nico asked the question too. So did you say that your job concerns privacy or data in the cloud also? Which AWS certification would be helpful in this role?
Let me answer your last question first. Mm-hmm. I really like AWS has a cert that is security focused. I forget the name of it. So not the cloud practitioner. That's the basic one. And listen, all certs are good. That one I think is actually easier to get, the cloud practitioner, but I like the specialty certs that AWS has. And be careful with that, Nico, because I don't want you to spend a lot of time getting certs and you don't end up in that industry. And what do I mean by that? So if you got certs all within machine learning, but you land a job doing database stuff, those certs don't serve you, right? So I'm always intentional to make sure that my certification is broad enough And so that's why I like the AWS security one, because who doesn't need that, right? Did you say that your job concerns privacy or data in the cloud also? My job does concern cloud a lot because, again, if we look at the data lifecycle, storage is one of those areas. And where are people storing data these days? In the cloud. So it's up to me to know the differences between AWS. A great example of that is the IAM module within AWS. Nico, I don't know if you touched AWS, but there are so many ways to leak data within the IAM module. And if you don't know where those things are to screw up and tighten, like people can get access to data. And so, GCP, Azure, I don't know how you say Azure. I think Oracle's got a cloud too. Salesforce is a SaaS that lives in the cloud. So I actually have to know Salesforce as well. So I hope that answers your question. But yes, cloud is very much related to privacy.
That is awesome. We've just been getting some amazing feedback as well. Dominique said, this is excellent. I've never heard of privacy engineering, but this was so fascinating and informative. So definitely a new area of interest. We love to see it.
Yes, we do.
And Vani also said that she can relate, I guess, to your current experiences in the role, but also was wondering if it was possible to start applying without having a certification right away. What do you think about that?
Vani, I think how many opportunities are you giving yourself for a yes? Because people are always looking to say no, right? People are typically waiting to dismiss you by an easy no. And so where am I going with that? Yes, you can apply without certifications, but if I'm applying for the same role that you are, who do you think is going to get the yes? That's kind of where I kind of fall in line with those things. Always give yourself the best shot, because listen, it doesn't mean that just because someone has a master's in something, whereas you don't, that you won't be looked at. But find every opportunity where they can look at your resume and go, okay, yes, right? And so most people, especially now, will consider, let's say there's 5 yeses to be interviewed. Let's say you only have two, let's say you have 3 yeses and 2 nos. Most people nowadays, most recruiters are now looking at that and collectively looking at you and saying, well, let's just see what she's talking about, right? So I think it's important to just be mindful of where am I getting my yeses and where am I going to have my absolute nos, and be able to prepare for that.
Wow, that's so good. Vani, I hope that was also encouraging to you as well. We had another question too, put in the chat. Could you tell us about your interviewing process? What was your favorite part and what was it?
The worst part of my interview was the technical part, because I suck at remembering. I told you I got this thing with memorization, like I can't remember stuff. But if I can associate it with something in my life, then it's easier to remember. And so I got a question that was related to SSL, like secure socket layer, and like TCP and all that kind of stuff. And listen, at the time, like I think it'd been 20 years since I had been in college. Like I didn't remember any of the technical lingo for those things. However, I was able to convey in my own language my understanding of the process of how SSL works. And I think that's what got me over the hump. So that was the part I didn't like. And then to tell you about my interview process, what was my favorite part? My favorite part was I got asked a question where I was just allowed to kind of riff, right? Like, what would you, okay, I'm just going to make up something that was related. So you're working with the marketing department and they're wanting to do something on their social media channels. What would you consider in terms of privacy for that, right? Wow. And that's such a broad question. Where do you go with that? How do you frame that? And for me, it was, I like to be able to riff like that. And again, how do I affiliate and associate with those things? So it allowed me to out loud, because I think it's important to let people know how your thought process is. People want to hire you for how you think, not what you know, right? We can teach you what we think you should know, but how do you think? And so it's important to kind of remember that. So yeah, I feel like that's a loaded question that I could spend all day on.
No, but that was really good. That was really, really good. And I hope you all leaned into that as well. We had another question. So, do we see, I'm going to really reframe this to, do you see a lot of Black women in PA? And if not, how are you championing this information, I guess, around the different spaces that you're in to see more enter into the field?
I am doing, how am I championing? I'm doing events like this, right?
Wow.
So when I was coming up in tech, when I talk about conferences, trainings, classes, workshops, I am typically the only Black woman in the room. If I'm not the only woman, I'm the only Black woman, I'm the only Black person. And so I got so frustrated with everything. Like, I had to overcome a lot to be where I am. And so for those who are coming up behind me, it's how do I leave that door open wide enough? And it's by showing them where the water is. So I try to make opportunities like this available, where I can teach, if not educate, if not mentor people. We all just, I don't even think it's about teaching and education. You can get that on your own, but we all just want that person on our back that says, keep going, because I didn't have that. And so that's how I'm spreading the information about my career. But in terms of, do I see a lot of Black women? Yeah. I'm actually pretty shocked because on LinkedIn, there are a few of us. The chief privacy officer over at Verily is a Black woman. So, and even in the consulting world, like at Deloitte and the KPMGs of the world, there are some Black women in some very high roles within privacy. So they exist, but we are so siloed out that if we don't do the networking, if we don't do the, hey girl, you should know such and such, we don't know each other exists. So I think it's happening, but yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. And Tiffany's over here giving up the fist. That's so cool. Again, I really just want to say thank you so much, Erin. This has been such an incredible session. Oh, somebody just put a question in. I'm gonna ask this question. We have a couple more minutes. So Kay Smith said, is privacy engineering taking into account social issues? Like what marginalized populations, like Black people's information might be used for? Policing, medical data. Yeah, that's good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Kay Smith, absolutely. So those conversations are happening, but that's why it's important for people like you to exist in the space, because who is going to advocate on your behalf but you? Right. And so I think that's important for why persons of color need to be in tech roles, because who in that meeting is going to ask the question, if we implement facial recognition, like how could the police use this against a certain marginalized group? Who's going to ask that question? I don't know that it would come from someone who grew up in Connecticut, went to Harvard, and, vacations in the Bahamas every year. If that makes sense.
Martha's Vineyard, honey. So that's so good, Kay Smith. I hope that also answered your question and also empowered you perhaps to enter the space as well. Giovanni is just celebrating your amazing nuggets that you dropped about giving yourself the best chance to get a yes.
It's real.
Let's go. It's real. And this some fire coming from Kay Smith. Absolutely, sis. So you all see the amazing Erin. She is fantastic. All of her information is here on the screen. Go ahead and follow her on Instagram, also on LinkedIn, and shoot her an email letting her know that you all was here as well, continuing that conversation. Erin, I'm just so grateful and thankful for you joining us. Like I said, I didn't know that much about this space either, so just kind of learning and leading. I said, child, maybe I want to go into that, honey. It's just giving Black woman 101,
Yes. Maybe that's your next workshop. There you go.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for the feedback again. Tiffany, Erica, they're so excited and so thankful as well. Again, we are so excited. We'll be back here again tomorrow, same time, same space and same platform. Go ahead and make sure, again, like I said, please reach out to Erin. We just talked about networking, okay? Now that you guys had the opportunity to come here, go ahead and continue those conversations as well. Until next time, bye, everyone. Bye.